So comic book pros have been just praising, saying, oh yeah, comic books are doing great, as Comicron has put out a sales chart for comics. Now here's the thing, is it really American comics like DC and Marvel that's actually boosting sales, or is it Manga and Scholastic that are doing it? Because I can tell you right now, it's not DC and Marvel like these comic pros want you to think it is. Oh boy, here we go again. Hey, what is going on, everybody? How are you all doing today? I hope you all are having a wonderful and fantastic day today, and if not, hopefully you all will have a better tomorrow. As we've been seeing, the American comic book industry has been collapsing for many years due to the same mistakes that they continue to make. Marvel and DC, for example, going around doing nothing more than attacking the fans, treating them with no respect, which fans do not like. Also going around to establish characters and ruining them, and making terrible stories, pushing their politics in, making just terrible quality art as well in their books. Like, I mean, look at some of the art in Marvel's books. It's atrocious. But apparently comic book pros have been praising what Comicron has recently posted. Now, what's funny about what Comicron has posted, while they posted a sales chart, right? It's funny because they don't get these numbers anymore, because Diamond is not a thing. So kind of funny that they're saying that, oh look, we have the numbers right here. Makes you question, where did you get your numbers from? That's the first thing. But also, what they factor in when it comes to comics is they factor in the young adult graphic novels. They also factor in manga and Scholastic. So while there has been an increase over the pandemic, here's the thing, manga and Scholastic have been impactful in these sales. But what they've also been doing is they've been trying to put these sales in with the American comic books to try to say that, oh, the American comic book industry is doing great. It's booming. When, it's not making the sales that manga's making, for example. I mean, you go to a Barnes & Noble and you see like giant aisles, like huge aisles of manga, and then you have like a tiny little area, like a little just, corner for DC and Marvel, right? And I highly doubt that they actually helped improve these sales. So this chart right here actually talks about book channels and comic stores, right? Digital downloads and other channels. So when it comes to book channels, that would be referring to like Scholastic as well as like Barnes & Noble. And while there's been a sales increase, I want you to take a look at what they had to say here. The total comics and graphic novel sales to consumers in the US and Canada were estimated to be $1.28 billion in 2020, which represents a 6% increase over sales in 2019 and a continual rise since 2017. They cite the increase to strong sales of graphic novels online and in mass merchants and strong digital sales, which overcame big declines in comic and bookstore sales. Now, the thing is when they refer to strong sales of graphic novels online, well, we've gone over what has been strong sales in terms of graphic novels, which has mostly been manga. The top 20 for 2 months in a row has been manga. So they're putting manga in there. But here's the thing, while it does increase sales for comics, it doesn't increase sales in the American comic book industry because manga's Japanese. So it works well for their industry, but that doesn't help Marvel or DC or the American industry. Like, you see where I'm getting at here? There's an actual difference. They know that the beginning of the year was dominated by kids' graphic novels, with manga doing similar later in the year, though we are still seeing signs of manga drought now. Funny, they mention kid graphic novels, and then they mention manga, but they don't mention, comics like superhero comics, right? So, kind of funny. Wouldn't you think that, considering that you have comic book pros, which we're going to get into in a moment, talking about how, like, superhero comics, you're like, oh, DC and Marvel, they're doing great! When it's like, you're not seeing that. You're seeing kid graphic novels like Dogman and manga, actually be the ones to sell. And like I said, when it came to the graphic novels, we've seen 2 months in a row, where in the top 20 adult graphic novels, it turned out to be manga. Not once, but twice. We have seen this happen to where manga has dominated. I mean, it's really telling you where the popularity is, what actually is selling, because if superhero comics, like they're trying to bring up and state, if they were actually selling, then wouldn't you imagine they would be in the top 20 adult graphic novels? You see, isn't that kind of the funny thing here when you look at it, as to where you have manga that's actually the one that's been dominating 2 months in a row, which I'm going to guarantee you we're going to see it probably also in the month of June. I bet when that comes out, it's going to be June. Wouldn't be surprised, and people love good entertainment like manga. And I mean, even right here it says, for the second month in a row, it's all manga in the top 20 adult graphic novels in the book channel. Based on NPD book scan data for May 2021, provided to ICV2. 8 of them were volumes of Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba. So, right there. I mean, that's already telling you what has been popular. It's been stuff like Demon Slayer, Attack on Titan, Boku no Hero Academia, Jujutsu Kaisen. We've been seeing this be very popular. I mean, not once has there been a mention of comics like, Batman, or Superman, or Iron Man, or Captain America, because they've run off their customers, they've ruined established characters, like I said, they've thrown their politics into books, and they've just ruined what people loved about superhero comics. It's like the popular statement that everybody, I'm sure, is aware of, and if you're not, well, you're about to be, where Kelly Sue DeConnick, who's a comic pro, always says, if you don't like my comics, then don't buy my book, which is what comic pros live by at Marvel and DC, basically. I mean, they've been running people off. And when you see this right here, the manga drought of 2021 is hitting, where you're seeing where manga is selling out. It's been in high demand, but there's been a reprinting issue. Well, thing is, here's what's going on. Manga, people are going to be more attracted to other manga. So if they don't get like a copy of something they want, then they're going to go for other manga. But what these comic book pros try to go on about is they try to state that, oh, hey, look, because manga, as this article even states here, all book sales are up, but manga sales in particular are through the roof. Now, while it says that, these comic book pros think that because people are interested in manga, they're going to go and buy like comics from DC and Marvel, which, no, it's not going to happen. Those are two totally different forms of comics. And while manga, yes, it does mean comic, it's still its own thing in comparison to what DC and Marvel are. So, you're not going to see a manga fan go up and be like, oh man, I'm interested in that Batman book, because there's a difference. And thing is that comic book pros, like when you have Comic-Con doing this, you have comic book pros coming in and praising it. Well, Comic-Con, what they're actually doing is they're actually hiding the sales because they're pushing in graphic novels like Scholastic and manga into the sales. They're actually hiding the real comic book sales. And the comic book pros come in, they're like, oh man, the industry is doing great. See how well it's thriving? It's doing great. And Comic-Con, I want you to keep in mind, they've been doing this for a few years now. Around like, I think between 2017 and 2019 is when they started this, somewhere in that time. And they started hiding actual comic numbers. So they put in the manga and the graphic novel sales to make the American comic book industry look better. Just some guy, shout out to him, he came in here and, he was throwing facts, man. He did a good job. This is what he stated. The charts show the American comic industry literally published a third fewer books in 2020 compared to 2019. So yes, American comics are stagnant. Manga and kids' books reign supreme. And Tim Seeley, he came in here, he is a professional comic book writer, and, he was arguing with just some guy stating, stagnant, American comics had similar sales as the previous year with less new books because of a pandemic that shut down stores doing all right. Just some guy responded with, retailers ordered the same number of books, but publishers printed 30% less, ending in same earnings as 2019, hence the word stagnant. Conversely, manga was literally printed, ordered, and bought more than before. One of those is growth, the other is the comic book industry. And then Tim Seeley came in here again and stated, manga is part of the comic book industry. It's comics, as are digital comics and comics for kids. If it makes you happy to think American comics are different than other comics and are in bad shape, carry on, I guess. Yeah, see, here's the thing. While manga is comics, it's different than the American comic book industry. It's different than Marvel and DC. So, when manga's doing good in sales, that doesn't make up for the sales that DC or Marvel are making. Because they're different. So, that's good for retailers. It's good for the Japanese market. But it doesn't mean that it's good for the American market. It doesn't mean that it's good for DC or Marvel. What these comic pros don't get is that, just because you're seeing manga do well, that doesn't mean that Marvel and DC are doing well. It doesn't mean that they're performing well at all, because they're two totally different forms of comics. You know, one's Japanese, one's American. So just because one of them sells well doesn't mean the other one will. And some people came in here at Tim Seeley and they were spewing facts also. Well, you have moments of clarity, Tim, but this isn't one of them times. Manga is mopping the floor with you, and manga success doesn't benefit our failing comic industry club. Another person came in here. When most people say comic industry, they're talking about the Western industry, DC, Marvel, Image, etc. Yes, they're in the same medium, but manga has very little overlap. Different country of origin, different storytelling style, aesthetic, and themes. Different demographic, and regardless of how it's defined, it doesn't make just some guy's statements less true. Figures show that the US segment of comics isn't growing. Meanwhile, there is a literal manga shortage, and Japan is pounding the rest of the world into the dirt. Whoa, that was brilliant. Oh, they got him good. Oh, man, because, like, they're right. You know, thing is, you know, it's like when you have Coca-Cola and Pepsi. If Coca-Cola's selling well, then that's good for Coca-Cola, not Pepsi. Because that means that Coca-Cola and their products are getting the money there. Now, does that mean it's good for soda? Yeah. But does that mean it's good specifically for Pepsi? No. You see my point here. Like, just because one is selling well doesn't mean the other is. And there's a complete difference. But of course, leave it to comic book pros to sit over here and try to spin it in their favor. Try to say that, oh yeah, we're winning because manga and Scholastic's doing great. No, it doesn't mean that at all. Like, doesn't mean that the comic book industry is saved in America. It just means that, you know, everywhere else is doing good. Like, you know, manga in Japan, they're doing great. It's doing great for realtors. But it's not doing good for the sales in the American comic book industry like DC, Marvel, Image, IDW, and so on. You know, that's the point here. But they're going to try to spin that narrative to make sure that, oh yeah, you all are lying, comics are doing great in America, DC and Marvel's, you're just reigning supreme. No. No, they're not. And this just goes to prove the point that, no, they're not selling well, as opposed to Manga and Scholastic. But anyways, let me know what you think about this entire situation down below. Subscribe to the channel if you were new here, and make sure you were still subscribed, because YouTube is unsubscribing people from all their favorite channels, so make sure you were still subscribed to all your favorite channels. Hit the video with a like, and also be sure to share the video on social media. Spread the word and get it out there. It's greatly appreciated, and it really helps out the channel a lot. Also, be sure to follow me on both Discord and Minds. We have a wonderful community there. Not only that, but it will keep you up to date on when the newest videos will be released, as well as any other upcoming events in the near future. So be sure to follow me on both Discord and Minds. The links are in the description down below. But anyways, I hope you all have yourselves a wonderful and fantastic day today. And remember, if today was not a good day, tomorrow could always be better. Take care of yourselves and everyone around you. And have yourselves a good one out there, everybody.